Your attention, masters, mistresses. All systems functional for the Everything Geek podcast.
Hey, this is Rich McDonald, and I play Commander David Mason on Call of Duty Black Ops 2. And you're listening to Everything Geek podcast.
Hey, it's James Arnold Taylor, the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Master Plo Koon in Star Wars The Clone Wars, and you're listening to Everything Geek, the podcast.
Hey, it's Leif Gamfert. I played Uncle Ben's killer in The Amazing Spider-Man, and you're listening to the Everything Geek podcast.
Hello, I'm Simon Fisherbecker. You probably know me better as Dorian Moldavar from Doctor Who, or the Fat Friar from Harry Potter. And this is Everything Geek podcast.
Face it, Tiger. You just hit the jackpot with the Everything Geek podcast.
You're listening to the Everything Geek podcast, bringing you interviews from your favorite films and TV shows every week, and all of the latest news. Here's your host, Ruari Williamson.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Everything Geek podcast. I'm your host Ruari, and joining me today is a very special guest. We have actress Sophie Aldred, who is best known for playing Ace in Doctor Who, Suzie in EastEnders, the voice of Muck and Bob the Builder, and Dennis in Dennis Gnasher. So how are you today, Sophie?
I'm very well, thank you. Yes, it's a little bit chilly today in England, but, well, where I am anyway. But a bit of sun and a little cold wind today. But other than that, I'm very well. We always have to talk about the weather, you see. It's very, very British.
I know. Anyway, it's a pleasure to have you join us on the podcast today.
Well, thank you.
You're very welcome. So getting right into the questions, Sophie, my first question for you is, how did you decide you wanted to become an actress?
Now it was. I can't remember the moment because I was actually too small. I've always wanted to do it, and I don't know because none of my family are involved in the business at all. But I do remember when I was about 5, getting all the neighbourhood children to kind of gather together and do my bidding in plays that we did in our back garden. And then we would, I always had to be the star. I was always a boy. I was always the handsome prince. And and then we'd sometimes do plays and charge an entrance fee, which was, a couple of pennies. And so the adults would have to come and watch. I don't know what they were like, these plays, probably incredibly boring. But anyway. So I was an actress and a businesswoman.
That's a great answer. Thanks for that. My second question is, how were you initially cast as Ace in Doctor Who?
Well, I was actually at the time in the back row of the chorus in a production of Fiddler on the Roof up in Manchester at the Opera House there. I was understudying Hoddle, one of the main characters, but I was in the chorus, and my agent put me forward for 3 episodes of Doctor Who to play a character who they wanted an actress who looked younger than she really was and who could ride a motorbike. And in true tomboy fashion, I had learned to ride a motorbike, so my agent put me forward for it, and I got an audition. So I went all the way down to London from Manchester on the train one morning, begrudging the train fare because it was actually very expensive, and I wasn't getting much money in the back row of the chorus. And I met the director, Chris Clough, and I had to do a piece, acting in front of him. So I did a little piece from a play called Daisy Pulls It Off, which is a wonderful play. And we had a chat, and that was it. And I went back on the train, and I thought, oh, that was a waste of time. And then a couple of weeks later, I got a recall to meet the producer, and I thought, oh gosh, not another train fare, all for nothing. So I went down there, and I saw John Nathan Turner, who was the legendary producer at the time, and I was literally in his office for can't have been more than about 10 minutes I was there. And he asked me to read this part of the script, which turned out to be a part of the script that I ended up doing in a story called Dragonfire, which was my first Doctor Who story. And then he gave me a couple of notes and asked me to read it again. And that was it. And I was back off on the train thinking, oh, well, that was a complete waste of time. And then a couple of weeks after that, I got a call from my agent. She'd been trying to call me all day. But of course, this was the days before mobile phones, and I didn't even have a telephone at the place I was staying. So she'd been calling the theatre, and I picked up several messages from her and used the backstage telephone to call her. And she gave me this amazing news that not only had I got these 3 episodes of Doctor Who, but that they were considering me for the new Doctor Who girl. I was absolutely flabbergasted because I'd never been in a TV studio before. I'd never been on screen. I didn't have a screen test. And that was it. And it was just amazing. So I said yes, of course, and was absolutely delighted.
That's a really great story. Very interesting. Thank you so much for that. My third question is, Ace was a really interesting character in that she loved explosive weapons and always wanted to be in the action. What was it like for you getting to play such an interesting character like Ace?
Oh, she was a wonderful character to play. I wasn't really at all like that, apart from being a tomboy. I was always quite a good girl growing up. So for me, it was wonderful to have the opportunity to run around, chucking explosives around, being rude to people, a multifaceted character as well, which was what was so exciting because at that time, this was 1987, long time ago, and there weren't really any other characters like that, young, feisty female characters on TV. So she was a real kind of almost like first of her kind. And it was really wonderful to be given the opportunity to play a character like that. I don't know whether I'd get away now with chucking explosives around, and I even had to fire a rocket-propelled grenade at one point. I don't think they'd allow that on TV for children anymore. But certainly at the time, it was just a wonderful opportunity to play such a strong young female role.
Yeah, I completely agree. Ace is like such a unique character in regard that, as you said yourself, I think, there weren't a lot of characters back then like that. There's a lot of strong female characters in all sorts of media today, but back then it really wasn't that common. So yeah, I would definitely say that Ace must have been a great character for you to play for that reason, and she became a fan favorite too, which is always good.
Yeah, that was nice as well. I always, from the word go, I had the complete support of the fans. There's a handful of people who find Ace annoying, I think, with her, wicked and all the expressions she had and stuff like that. But the vast, vast majority of people, especially young women. Now I meet women who are, well, I guess, but in their early 30s, 40s, and they say that Ace was had such a great effect on them because they've never seen a character like this before, and that she was strong and she was a really good role model for them. So that's a wonderful thing to be.
Definitely, I completely agree. Moving on to my fourth question. Doctor Who ended for a while after the story Survival was aired. Did you ever expect when the Survival episodes had aired that the show would eventually be revived to like it was with Russell T Davies?
Oh no! When it was when we actually filmed Survival, and we had no idea that it was going to be the last story. Because we actually filmed them in a different order. We filmed a story called Ghostlight last. So with Survival, that was destined to become the last story, and we didn't know. So it was terribly sad when there was this sort of massive pause, and Doctor Who was put on hold, and we really had no idea that it was going to come back, and it was just brilliant that it did, and in such fantastically capable hands. I mean, basically, if it hadn't been Russell T Davies, it would not have come back. It was just brilliant because he was being courted by the BBC. He'd done a lot of work for the commercial stations, and I don't think he'd ever done anything for the BBC, or not anything adult. I think he'd done children's stuff. And they really wanted Russell T Davies because he was, flavour of the month, and he's a fantastic writer, producer. He's an amazing guy. So the BBC basically said to him, "What would tempt you to come to the BBC?" And he said, "Bringing Doctor Who back." And it was just brilliant because, in his hands, it was just so successful. He knew it inside out. He knew what the fans would like. He knew what the public would like. It was just great, really perfect person to bring it back.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think in itself it's becoming a lot more common when fans themselves now these days are like making things popular, like not just Doctor Who with Russell T Davies, but even things like the Marvel films are done by fans. Like, it's just very interesting that, it's becoming a lot more common these days for that to happen, and it's great. I mean, I'm the host of this podcast, and I'm delighted to see it happening that way. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, definitely. So, moving on to my fifth question, I see you've worked as a voice actor and even an educational presenter on a number of children's programs, such as Bob the Builder and Dennis Gnasher. Was working on children-aimed programs always something you wanted to do, or do you think it's great to do these shows to make children happy?
Do you know, it's a mixture of both. Right from an early age, I wanted to be on children's TV, a children's TV presenter. And I remember when I was really young making stuff inspired by a wonderful British programme called Blue Peter. And that was presented in my day by these three iconic presenters called Val, John and Pete. And I grew up with them, and I wanted to be like them. So that was really something that I definitely wanted to do, to be not only an actress, but to also be a children's TV presenter. And funnily enough, I actually, the year that I got Doctor Who, I also have been pursuing the avenue of children's presenting, and I had an audition for a children's program as presenter, and got that job as well. So I had this amazing year in 1987 where I got the job as the Doctor Who girl, and then I got the job also as presenting this children's program called Corners. And really, I never looked back from there, and I just managed to combine doing children's presenting for all sorts of programs, educational stuff like Words and Pictures and Number Time. There's still people who come up to me and said, "Oh, you taught me to read on Words and Pictures." And then also the sort of more entertainment-based children's presenting programs. I did Saturday mornings on ITV, and I did a wonderful program called It's a Mystery for children's ITV, which was exploring the paranormal. It was a bit like the X-Files for for kids, and finding out the sort of the real stories behind the mysteries and stuff. All sorts of programs I did for them. And then, as you mentioned, the animation more recently, since my kids were born, I just really wanted to do less stuff that would take me away from home, and voiceovers proved to be the perfect fit. So yeah, I do things like I do a program called Tree Food Tom, which helps children who have dyspraxia, which is incredibly popular in this country, and you have it as well, only not my voice because you have an American. Somebody's dubbing it in American. I'm doing Peter Rabbit at the moment, playing several parts in Peter Rabbit. So it's really like I have this long association with children's TV, and I love it. I think there's nothing more rewarding than working with children and making them happy, as you
Yeah, I
say.
completely agree. That's a really great answer. And if you had to choose, which would you say you prefer doing, on camera or voiceover?
Oh, on camera. I mean, I'm just beginning to think, oh, right, it's about time I got back in front of the camera because, as I say, I've been looking after my boys for all these years now, and I'm just getting slightly itchy feet again. So, yeah, so I'm kind of looking forward to doing a bit of stuff on screen as well. And I've done the odd thing in the last year or two. I did a nice part in a film called Search for Simon, which is a sci-fi comedy. I played a great character in that, and then I did something recently in a short film called The Sitter, which is coming out soon, which again was different. You know, it's just really nice to dip my toes back in the
Definitely,
water.
and of course, so many people want to see an eventual return of Ace and Doctor Who in the ongoing series.
Yes, that
Yeah.
would be great, wouldn't it? Because we never really know what happened to Ace. It was never finished off, that part of the story. So yeah, that would be great to revisit
Absolutely,
Ace.
it's of course great to hear for Doctor Who fans that you're interested in returning at some point. So, moving on to my last question for you, Sophie, do you have any upcoming acting roles or any other projects you would like to talk about? I know that there's the comedy sci-fi audio adventure called Strangeness in Space. Do you want to tell our listeners about what it is, who is working on it, and why they should check it out?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Strangeness in Space came about just over a year ago. We had a reunion at the drama department in Manchester, where I was a student, and a lovely friend of mine, Claire, who she's worked on a podcast series called The Minister of Chance. She was the executive producer of that, which is really worth checking out if you haven't. It's a sci-fi drama. It's a brilliant piece of work, and it's got all sorts of people like Paul Darrow, Paul McGann, Sylvester McCoy, Julian Wadham, lots of amazing actors in it. Anyway, Claire suddenly thought, we should do something together with two old friends, Trev and Simon, who were also at Manchester University with us. Trev and Simon used to do Saturday morning TV. They were a comedy duo, and they just brilliant, really funny, quite surreal comedy. And I always wanted to work with them, and they were up for it. And so they wrote a few scripts, which Claire and I loved. We laughed out loud when we read them. And so it's a comedy sci-fi audio drama. And yeah, so the basic premise of the story is that my character, Sophie, gets blasted up into space with Trev and Simon, and we end up orbiting the planet Mirth, which is a bit like Earth. And we end up having weird and wonderful adventures on the planet and off. And we have a robot on board with us, a robot enhanced computer, linguistically enhanced computer called Lemon, played by Barnaby Edwards, who plays Dalek voices in Doctor Who. And it's amazing because we just managed to attract more and more, great people on board with us on this adventure. So we have a couple of comedians, Doon McKeekan, who was also at university with us, she's very funny. She's playing our narrator. And then we have a comedian called Rufus Hound, who is pretty well known over here. He's playing a character for us. And we get up to all sorts of things, all sorts of adventures. So it's well worth checking out.
Definitely, it sounds very interesting. And how about acting roles? Do you have any of those coming up, either on camera or voiceover?
Oh, I'm always doing loads of voiceover. So for tomorrow, I'm doing Trifu Tom. I'm going into town, and I'm doing some more spells for Trifu Tom because he has Trifu magic, and I have to go and record all the magic for that. Then I've got Peter Rabbit coming up, and I've also got this week a couple of days on Big Finish, who are the company who do audio drama Doctor Who, which is, again, if you haven't heard of Big Finish, check them out because there's original Doctor Who drama, which is fabulous. It's really, really worth listening to. So yes, I'm pretty busy, which is just how it should be.
Absolutely, I completely agree 100%. So that's all I've actually experienced for you today, Sophie. It's been a podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here, and Strangeness in Space. I think you'll like it.
Check it out, and we'll definitely check it out. So hopefully we can talk to you again at some point.
Yeah, lovely, great.
Great, so I'll talk to you again soon then. Bye.
Super, thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Check out our website.everythinggeekpodcast.com/egp. Check out our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/everythinggeekpodcast. Check out our YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/user/everythinggeekcast. Check us out on Twitter, twitter.com/everythinggeekp. Check us out on Instagram, instagram.com/official-everythinggeekpodcast. Check out our Mixcloud profile, www.mixcloud.com/everythinggeekpodcast. Email us at the following email, everythinggeekpodcast@gmail.com. Check out our companion podcast, Everything Geek Comiccast, www.facebook.com/everythinggeekcomiccast. Make sure to check out the hosts' YouTube channels. Mine is www.youtube.com/user/separatist-destroyers. Check out Sophie Aldred's website, www.sophiealdred.net. Check out the Strangeness in Space website, strangenessinspace.com, and check out Channel 138 where we broadcast live from, www.channel138.com. Geeks out, everyone.
The sound of it exactly, just the feeling of it is. I think what was surprising when Doctor Who came back onto the screens was how emotional it was. Nobody said it was going to be emotional. Nobody said there were going to be long, big speeches about humanity. And
I didn't have to make the decision to become an actor. In fact, it seemed an absolutely natural course for me to take in later life. I was quite good at running away. That was my problem, running away.